Imagine a quiet neighborhood where families trust each other to watch over their kids like extended family. But then, a single act of violence shatters that trust forever. That's the shocking reality exposed in Netflix's documentary, The Perfect Neighbor, which dives deep into the devastating effects of America's Stand Your Ground laws. If you've ever wondered how a simple knock on a door could end in tragedy, buckle up. This story will make you question everything about self-defense and justice in the U.S. On the morning of June 2, 2023, Ajike Owens, a devoted mother of 4, did something entirely ordinary. She walked across the street to her neighbor's house. Her son had just returned home upset, explaining that the 58-year-old woman next door, Susan Lorincz, had yelled at and tossed objects at his little brother for playing on the shared grassy area between their homes. Owens, hoping to resolve the misunderstanding, approached Lorinc's door and called out to her. But instead of responding, Lorincz fired a shot through the door, fatally wounding Owens right there on the street. Owens was only 35 years old, leaving behind a grieving family and a community in shock. For more details on the incident, check out reports from sources like The Independent. At first glance, this seems like a clear-cut case of murder. But remember, this happened in America, where Stand Your Ground laws are in effect in over half of the states. In Florida, where Owens and Lorincz resided in the city of Ocala, these laws allow individuals to use lethal force if they reasonably believe it's necessary for self-defense against imminent threats or certain crimes. Lorincz later claims she thought Owens was there to harm her, saying to investigators, "I don't even remember grabbing the gun. I just remember firing it." It's a chilling reminder of how these laws can justify deadly actions based on perceived fear. But here's where it gets controversial. Lorincz wasn't immediately taken into custody. It took several days before her arrest, during which Owens' outraged community sprang into action. They held signs, gave interviews, and demanded accountability. Among them was filmmaker Gita Ganbir, who spent 2 days reviewing more than 30 hours of police body cam footage obtained via a Freedom of Information request. This footage covered the frustrating 2 years of escalating tensions leading up to the shooting. Convinced this could spark real change, Ganbir approached Owens's mother, Pam, for permission to turn the story into a documentary. The result is The Perfect Neighbor, a gripping 97-minute film that earned Ganbir the Directing Award for U.S. Documentary at this year's Sundance Film Festival and is now tipped as a strong Oscar hopeful. "I wanted to share the agony and heartbreak," Pam Owens says of her courageous choice to open up about her daughter's death. "The world needs to witness the damage Stand Your Ground laws can cause, the dangers of guns in the wrong hands, and the ugly face of racial violence. For beginners trying to grasp this, think of Stand Your Ground as a legal shield for people who feel threatened. It lets them respond with force without retreating first. But critics argue it often escalates minor conflicts into deadly ones." Lorincz stood out as an anomaly in her tight-knit Ocala neighborhood, a place where residents treated each other like family. They were kind and supportive, always keeping an eye on each other's children for safety, Ganbir recalls. Yet Lorincz undermined that unity. In the 12 months before the shooting, she called 911 about a dozen times, complaining about the neighbors' kids. 11-year-old girls skating on rollers and boys dribbling basketballs on the communal lawn, for supposedly trespassing. The video from that fateful night is heartbreaking to watch. Owens' son, who witnessed his mother being shot, races back across the street, sobbing and pleading for help. On the police body cam, you hear Pam's sobs over the phone as she's told her daughter has died. "There's no way to put it into words," she reflects now, her voice breaking. "I was in total disbelief, even though—" She pauses, tears welling up as she stares at her hands. "We talked almost every day. I'd reach for my phone to message her, and then—" Her composure falters again. "Seeing her like that in the film hit me hard. That's when it all became real. What the community endured felt like something from a nightmare," Ganbir observes. Susan posed a real danger, but the police brushed her off. They'd show up repeatedly, labeling her as just a nuisance or frequent caller. They didn't see her as a threat, even though she exploited her race and privilege to intimidate the community. As a white woman, Lorincz hurled hateful slurs at the children and reportedly brandished a gun before the fatal incident in 2023. Still, officers never cautioned her about misusing emergency services or harassing families. They put up with her behavior, Gambier says. They faltered, and in doing so, they didn't protect anyone. It led to the worst possible result for all involved. And this is the part most people miss. How does privilege play into who gets labeled a nuisance versus a real danger? When Lorincz was eventually arrested, the police handled her with remarkable leniency. In a scene from The Perfect Neighbor, she's informed of her manslaughter charge while in custody, but she refuses to stand and go to jail. "I can't do it," she repeats to 3 officers who wait patiently for minutes without any force or firmness. If she were a person of color, they'd have hauled her out instantly, no question, Gambier asserts. She knew how to manipulate the system, and they were outmatched. This raises a hotly debated point. Do racial biases in policing and justice create unequal outcomes under laws like Stand Your Ground? Data backs this up starkly. Studies indicate that killings involving white perpetrators and black victims are 5 times more likely to be deemed justified under these laws. In states with Stand Your Ground, 45% of cases with a white shooter and black victim were ruled justifiable, versus just 11% for black shooters targeting white victims. In Florida, gun homicides surged by 32% after the law's 2005 introduction. The U.S. Commission on Civil Rights has called it a license to kill, enabling people to turn petty arguments into fatal confrontations. For example, imagine a dispute over loud music or a backyard fence escalating to gunfire. Under Stand Your Ground, the shooter might walk free if they claim fear. But is this protection or a green light for overreaction? Lorincz received a 25-year prison sentence on November 25, 2024, after a judge determined her actions stemmed more from rage than genuine fear, and that she was safe behind the door when she fired. Gambier briefly touches on this in the film, placing the courtroom clips at the end. "I don't want viewers thinking justice prevailed just because Susan went to jail," she explains. Incarceration isn't the fix. There's no silver lining here. Instead, we hope this inspires people to push for better protections in their own communities. Since the documentary's January premiere, Pam has connected with countless others who've suffered similar losses. "You wouldn't believe how many folks approach me with stories of their own tragedies or those of family members," she shares. In response, she's founded the Standing in the Gap Fund to aid families affected by racial violence. "It's still happening across the U.S. over and over," she adds. "We're bound to see more cases. We need reforms. Everyone must speak up for change." Gambier drives the point home powerfully. "Your neighborhood mirrors the bigger world," she says. "If we can rationalize ending a life over something trivial, what else might we excuse? It could lead to war, genocide, or just numbness to suffering." This film shows communities thriving in trust and security until one person's access to guns and this emboldening law destroys it all. It should never have come to this. Controversy aside, does The Perfect Neighbor make you rethink how far self-defense should go? Is the law empowering victims or enabling abuse? And what role does race play in these outcomes? Share your opinions in the comments. We'd love to hear if you agree, disagree, or have your own take on reforming these laws. The Perfect Neighbor is now streaming on Netflix starting October 17th.